How's it going, YouTube? Welcome to the season finale of Anime Bar Fight, where we're going to be talking about the summer 2021 anime that we decided to finish. On today's agenda, we have 8 different anime. We have the Vanitas no Cart, we have Black Company, we have Maid, we have Star Wars anime. Does that have like a full
Star
name?
Wars Visions.
Star Wars Visions. Life Lessons with Uramichi, Kageki Shoujo, Sonny Boy, and Dragon Maid Season 2. We watched 5 each. We share Sonny Boy and Dragon Maid, so we're going to talk about those last. I watched Vanitas, Kuro Maid, and Life Lessons, and you watched...
I watched Star Wars Visions, I watched Kageki Shoujo, and Black Company.
Yeah, and so we're going to go back and forth with those, and then we're going to tier them. The ones that we watched ourselves, we basically just get the full rights to call it whatever we want, and then the ones that we shared, we discussed what we would tier it off camera, and so we know that we agree with whatever we have written on our little fancy index card. So, without further ado, I'm going to start us off. I'm going to talk about Vanitas. When I first watched it, back in like the first impressions video, I was really excited to watch it because I like vampires, even though they're a little tropey. And that's kind of where the show starts. It's kind of like a tropey show. It has pretty much everything you'd expect from vampires. And for a while, that's really just what it is. It's this human who finds a book that has a lot of information on vampires and how to cure them of curses. And it ends up being that the way that he generally cures them of their curses by killing them, which seems like a pretty convenient out, but I ended up actually really liking it. It's kind of a season 2 bait because at the end of it, I didn't really feel like I had a lot to talk about. Like, there's no like key moments that I was like, that's worth talking about in the video. That's something I need to bring up. But I will say that it went from being kind of a mid show to a little above average around episode 8, and unfortunately, by virtue of not really having like a banger finale, it kind of just peters out and feels like a comeback for season 2 finale. It didn't really warrant being a super hype anime, but the soundtrack was probably one of the best parts, and the character chemistry is really good, especially from the main 2 characters, Vanitas and Noe. And it's definitely one of those shows where I can see a lot of fangirls probably forcing these 2 to be a pair. And to be honest, like, with the type of chemistry they have, it almost feels it. Even as someone who doesn't like yaoi ships, they almost just feel like a pair. But yeah, it was really good. I liked what I watched. Actually pretty excited for season 2. It feels like if season 2 is good, this could be an A-ranked anime, but since I'm just judging it based off what it has, we're going to put this right in the B rank.
You think it did vampires justice in anime? Or is it just kind of like there?
It's a really subjective question. So, like, did it do vampires justice? I mean, like, the first episode feels like it's just like, oh, I've seen this before. And then by the end, it feels like each vampire kind of has their own very, like, unique outlook on life and personality. And that's what I kind of like, because while it starts off kind of tropey, which means that every vampire kind of feels like just vampire character.
Right.
You eventually get to, like, learn more about them, and each vampire character kind of has their own, like, personality, and some of them have, like, some
I think the distinction that I'm asking more for is just that, like, vampires in any media have, like, because you have, like, Underworld, which is, like, vampires, and they just shoot guns, and they don't actually look like vampires.
Oh, these are, like, traditional vampires, so, like, they suck blood, and, like, that has, like, implications.
Okay.
Like, I don't think if I remember correctly, it doesn't turn you into a vampire in this, because Vanitas gets his blood sucked and doesn't become a vampire. He's still very much a human. But, like, some vampires, like there's usually some, like, power transferal by sucking blood, so, like, sometimes it makes the human stronger, sometimes it makes the vampire stronger.
Gotcha.
One of the characters, when he sucks blood, literally inherits all the, like, memories of that character. Okay. So, like, you know, one of the main vampires could deadass be like, I want to know what trauma you've been through, and then he'll suck your blood and just sort of start crying and be like, oh.
Okay, that's cool. So, so it's like a vampire's vampire.
Oh, yeah.
Then not just like, well, they're vampires, but not real.
Exactly, yeah. No, they're traditional vampires. Which is why, like, I almost stopped watching it just because I got really distracted this season. But you know that tends to be what happens to me for seasons. But like, it's almost convenient that it's a summer season, but by the end it's in October. So now that since it was October, I randomly was like, vampire anime, I'm ready to finish this. So yeah, I got just enough inspiration to finish this right before this video.
Which is exactly what happened with Black Company for me.
Perfect.
So Black Company, when I first talked about it, I said it was Konosuba on steroids. I don't think that anymore. But it was still fun. There's not really a lot to say about Black Company. It's just a funny comedy that takes the piss out of, like, work culture and shit like that, but it really isn't a series that has a lot of talking points, to be honest.
Yeah, so I watched the Gigyuk video, because I watch a lot of Gigyuk, and he does a pretty good, like, anime impressions video, and he called it, like, capitalism in another world. Is that a pretty
That's pretty much what it is,
yeah. Okay.
I think halfway through there's a character that gets introduced that's Trap Femboy, whatever you want to call it. I hated that character.
Oh?
Which was actually hilarious for me.
Right.
Given, you know, my tastes are. But they were just very annoying, and it kind of took a while to get to a point where it got good again. When it did, I feel like the first 4 or 5 episodes of this were, like, top tier, really funny all the time. And then it tried to go a little too plot heavy. And once it started doing that, it was, like, starting to lose me. But it was still funny enough that I still liked it enough by the end.
It's like one of my biggest fears for any anime is like when the character dynamics work so well and they decide to introduce a new character. Like, you have to really hope that they can keep the...
Yeah, because they did it at the expense of other characters, because at that particular point when they introduced this one, they had removed 2 of the characters from the story for this specific purpose. And it's just like, I don't really care about this new character, and I miss the old ones. So what are we doing here?
Miss the old Kanye?
No. Yeah. It was solid. It was definitely solid. But it is surprising to see a series that, you know, initially rides only off of comedy, get that story, and then suddenly the story is actually what made it worse than anything else, because usually you want that balance. But I guess the balance just wasn't as good for this. Of course, here I am going again, being harsh on something and making it feel like I didn't actually like it as much as I did.
Well, that's what a critical analysis is all about, is, you know, some people watch things just to enjoy them. But
hated every second of it, 10 out of 10.
Exactly. Well, that's like when you know you've become like a real, like, critic.
Yeah.
Because, like...
Definitely funny all the way through, just maybe not as funny in the second half. Yeah, good.
Rating?
Huh?
Rating on a tier list?
Oh, I forgot we were even putting it down there right now. I'm stupid. It was a B tier for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Alright, so that was Black Company. Moving on. Maid. I forget what I really had to say about it in first impressions. I think my first impressions by memory were mostly just the show felt kind of tropey and samey. This is like one of those rare examples of where the 3-episode rule is not an all-encompassing like rule, because my opinions of the show drastically changed. By a whim, I decided to continue watching it, and from the 4th episode onward, it gets much better. And this is like a rare example of how introducing more characters can actually save a show, because I really like the main 3 that are introduced from the 1st episode. You have the main character who's cursed, and then he kills anything he touches, and then you have I don't know why I just call it Maid, because I think wasn't the full title like the Duke of Death and his Maid or something like that. So I'm really...
you're calling it Maid because that's, you know, the name that Mal has it for.
That is okay.
But yeah, it's like the Duke of Death and his Maid.
I see. Yeah, that's the full name. But yeah, so the main 3 characters are actually great. It's just that their chemistry with each other gets really rinsed and repeated in those 3 episodes, to the point where you think that's all the show has to offer, which is the main character being kind of down and depressed because he kills everything he touches, his maid who acts very flirtatious because they're a romance, and she very teasingly tries to touch him, which would be bad if it actually happened, because then she would die, and then they'd both be pretty sad. Or, well, she'd be dead, so she wouldn't be sad. She'd be dead, but he would be sad. And then the butler, who, honestly, for the first 2 episodes, is probably the best character in the show, just because he has a little bit more variety in terms of his character. But from the 4th episode onward, you get introduced to more and more characters. You get a better feel for their family dynamic. Their family dynamic is that the mother's kind of really messed up, and you kind of see that. You get a vibe for that really early on, since he gets fucking exiled, and like, yeah, don't come home until you're not cursed. It's like, well, it's not my fault. And mother's very manipulative and kind of a bitch and all that shit. But the other characters of the household are a lot more balanced, because while you hate the mother, you can tell that both the sister and the brother, who do get introduced into the show, and then, visit the main character at his abode, they have quirks that they obviously inherited from the mother that might make them look down on their siblings, but it's balanced by some actually decent character growth, as much as you can have for like a season that doesn't introduce these characters until a few episodes in. And then you have characters that are introduced as witches. I forget. The one I really liked, her name's Cuff, and then she has a counterpart whose name I forget, but he has like a bird mask looking face that's his actual face.
Like a plague doctor thing? Or?
Yeah, it's like kind of, it looks more like a literal bird, like a white bird. Okay. It's not a literal mask, although I thought it was at first, because Cuff's literally like, she has like a very human design, but then her interest character has like a bird face, kind of. I'll show you later.
Okay.
I forget his name, but they're both really cool characters. Cuff is a great character because she has kind of like she's really nice, but also like kind of hesitant around humans, but she has like a really naive but kind personality, and it actually ends up working really well with the characters. She helps kind of create a better dynamic, and she also is like, her introduction is that like, the main character ends up helping her, and like, but the main character's also out like in the snow looking for his maid's like earring that she lost while they were like building snowmen or something, and then she sees him like desperately looking for it, and like it kind of helps her get past her like humans are awful like sort of thing, because she's like, oh okay, well he's putting himself in harm's risk just for a goddamn earring.
Character,
and so because she has like witch's power, she's just kind of burning the snow with fire magic to look for the ring, and then this leads into progressing the plot, because we've been introduced to witches, and the witch is what cursed him, and so she's like,
yeah, that's cool.
On the night of the next Sabbath, the witches meet up, and that's like we give some spoilers for this, but I won't. In some places where I don't think spoilers are necessary, right. I won't spoil too much here. But yeah, it's definitely, the show just gets better. 4th episode. Overall, though, it has the same issue Vanitas does. Its finale doesn't really leave like you can have a end of season 1 finale with the chance of a season 2 be really good. That's not what this is. It feels like there's no conclusion. It doesn't feel solved. So a B tier is almost generous, in all honesty, because I was left feeling more, but for the wrong reasons, because there's 2 ways to cap a season. There's, I want more because it had a strong finish, and then there's, I want more because there wasn't a conclusive
I think something huge with this series is that right from the start, that animation would turn away most people.
Yeah.
So the fact that it even kept your attention as long as it did and actually managed to be good despite its limitations is kind of a testament to itself.
Well, actually, I think the animation was very jarring. Episode 1, I will say that. I almost did.
Did it get better?
No, but it grew on me.
Just charming enough, I guess.
Yeah, maybe because like, if characters are good enough, the anime almost, it grows on you, I guess. And like, I guess I don't hate like CGI like as much as other people.
I don't either, but it's very dependent on what it is, because
I will say you
got X-Arm, like there's stuff like that that's
it's
like
it's not bad, but it's not good either. It's not. I wouldn't like point to it as an example of good CG. If anything, I'd point it as an example of literally average CG.
Exactly.
But like
this isn't like Land of the Lustrous or something like that.
I don't care that much. Like some people are immediately like, I can't do it. But for me, like, I love anime and I love showcasing good anime and calling out good anime, good animation when it's there. But like, if animation is just basic, as long as it gets the job done, I usually am lenient. The plot's usually the most important thing. Anything else accentuates it. Like, I care a lot about everything that goes into an anime, like the animation, obviously, it's in the name, and then the OST, the characters, and whatnot. But as long as the plot's good, like, almost everything else can be overlooked. It will affect my ultimate opinion usually, but it'll at least get me from start to finish. So, yeah.
Right.
Well, tell us about Star Wars Vision.
So, Star Wars Visions is an anthology. So every single episode is a new story done by a different animation studio. Some of them, they had more than one episode, but for the most part, different animation studio for each of its 9 episodes.
Was Trigger one of the ones?
Trigger did 2 of them.
Ooh,
one of them felt definitely Trigger. The other one, honestly, I was shocked to hear it was Trigger. You mind if I just do a rundown of each individual story? So the first episode is a black and white homage to like Akira Kurosawa movies, like Seven Samurai, stuff like that. It used CG animation to bounce off what we were just saying, but the black and white kind of hid what the jankiness of it was. It was fun. That's kind of all I can say for pretty much all of these episodes, were that they were fun in some way, and I think it's cool, much like Animatrix was, to see Japan take a look at a big IP from America and then translate that into anime with their own ideas.
Some more an anime you check out if you're already familiar with Star Wars. It's not a good way to get into Star Wars.
I think it's worth a look either way.
Okay.
But you just can't really expect much story out of these.
Oh.
Because essentially, each of these episodes was a fight scene. That's pretty much all. It's not like, bare bones, okay, have a fight scene, no story. There were some of these episodes that I actually really liked, and I saw it, and I'm like, I really hope Disney goes into this and actually tries to make a series out of some of these, because some of them had very strong presentations. But, as with any anthology, that's all you get. There's no actual... Once you get done with that episode, that's it. That's all there was. I know they're making a novel off of one of them, but it's not really a continuing series. It's a novel. It's not an anime, so I don't care about that. But you had a lot of stories in this. There was a coming-of-age story. There was essentially an episode that was Astro Boy meets Star Wars, which was actually kind of fun. You had Trigger, which literally the first Trigger episode was like they took the Satsuki versus Ryuko fight from Kill la Kill and just said, what if we took that and put it in Star Wars?
I don't even like Kill la Kill as much as you.
It's just like...
That sounds like something I'd want to
Yeah, but I mean, like, even if you don't, you can pretty obviously see what I'm talking about when I mention that fight. It was fun, and I think it's worth watching. But like I said, you're not going to get much out of it than just, hey, that looked cool. Hope they do something with that. And if they don't, well, it was cool while I watched it. So definitely C tier, because it's hit and miss as all anthologies are, but it was fun while it lasted. So why not? It's cool.
It's cool. It's cool. Right. Up next, I watched, on a whim, Life Lessons of Uramichi. Which is funny, because if you watch the first impression, wasn't even on my radar. Didn't even pick it up.
I was the one who had it.
So, we practically swapped. Corey decided not to proceed with watching it, whereas I felt like I wanted a comedy, and one of my friends posted a meme from it on Facebook. I don't think that friend even watched it. But when I saw the meme, I'm like, oh, I kind of like the comedy. The visual really helped me see what the show was going, where it contrasts what childs think are funny and what adults think is funny and dark and depressing. So it, like, kind of layers them together. So like you'll have like the teacher or like the show entertainer. That's what we'll go with, entertainer. So Uramichi, the athletic entertainer who's like working with the kids for like a live TV show will like, you know, actively, energetically.
It's a parody of some show.
Yeah, he'll be like, "Oh, hey, kids, what do you guys have that adults don't?" And then they'll be like, "Dreams, hope, health." And then he just, in a very depressed faces, goes, "All right answers." And it just has tons of humor like that. It gets repetitive sometimes, but like I feel like it also kind of has some good life moments. But it goes back and forth constantly, where sometimes you're like, "Oh man, Uramichi has it rough, and I can relate to him," and other times he's kind of just acting like an asshole, and then you're like, it goes back and forth, I'd say.
So I watched one episode of this, and I'm wondering, since you've watched the whole series, did you ever get the feeling this would have worked better as a short anime versus a 22-minute episode type of anime? Because I feel like breaking it up in shorter episodes might have helped it a bit.
It's interesting because for some episodes, yes, and for some episodes, no. I'm going to say overall, yes. I think like the second to last episode really pivots on the serious nature of it. And so the 11th episode, I think it's 12 episodes long, so I believe it's the 11th episode, really focuses more on the serious aspect of the shows, which it spent time building up with all the characters and what they're all about and how they interact with each other. And due to a misunderstanding, one of the characters thinks Uramichi's leaving the show when he's really just upset because his gym's moving like out of town.
Oh no.
So it gets kind of the heart of it, because these characters by default usually clash heads, but like now that, you know, he thinks like Uramichi's leaving, he's like reflecting and being like, "Oh shit, that sucks." All for the last episode to sort of spin on its head and go back to the same formula, which I think would work with what you're saying, kind of like a daily life of Psyche kind of thing. Where
something like that.
Where like you can watch it in 20-minute segments, but they're really just 4 minutes short.
Because inherently, Uramichi is a gag manga.
Yeah.
So like,
I think it would have worked better like that, honestly, because that 11th episode could have just been the exception to the rule, rather than, you know, it could have just been structured differently for one episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it does work better as shorts, because literally the entire like gimmick of the last episode, and like, honestly, I'll get to my rating soon, but like honestly, the last episode was probably the most disappointing thing of it all. Actually.
No.
Because it is a gag comedy, to be fair, so I guess it is what it is. But the 11th episode built up what I was hoping to have, like a good serious note, and to be fair, by the end of it, it's nice to kind of see the characters come together and get along a little better. But the gag of the last episode is that they're trying to like have the last episode be like a finale, so they keep trying to like find something dramatic, but every time something dramatic happens, and it ends up being a misunderstanding. Like, "Oh no, your dog's dead. Oh wait, he's just playing dead. Okay, phew." So like they keep encountering dramatic, like, "Oh god, that's awful. That's gonna be like such a bad like season finale twist," and then it just ends up being like, "No, it's fine. Don't worry about it."
Oh my god.
And like, yeah, it's funny like for the first like.
I think there's anime that can juggle this type of thing, where it has more serious moments and like just gags. New Game is one that I love New Game, and it juggled that stuff a lot, and that's originally a 4-koma manga. So
I like dark humor though, so like having the dark humor juxtaposed. Hey, that was the word I was looking for before discussion. Oh, that's really convenient. Yeah, seeing the dark adult humor juxtaposed against the children's like lack of understanding is really funny. And so sure. Like
total disconnect like that that can really help comedy.
I'd rate it a B tier overall. I really enjoyed it, but like it is at the end of the day kind of a gimmick, and like what could have improved it was more variety of jokes, more of the adult scenarios, because they do very much have specific scenarios where the adults are separated from the kids, and it's just the adults working off their chemistry. But I feel like some of the adults are a little too one note, and they could have a little more character. And
that's kind of the curse of it being from a gag manga.
By memory, they do focus a little bit on the characters' backstories. That's kind of like where the most resonation with the show comes from, is like getting to know the characters a little more.
Yeah, because you don't want them to be one note, or else you're going to get 3 episodes in and drop it.
One of my favorite animes of all time is Gintama, and that really knows how to juxtapose the comedy with the actual serious moments. At the risk of some total whiplash, because sometimes you'll be so invested in, oh man, this character's backstory is so heart-wrenching, and then sometimes Gintama just decides, psych! That was actually a gag. We're sorry. But Gintama knows to actually be serious enough where, though sometimes you'll get those total whiplash moments at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You do get so many good serious moments that this show could have benefited from. Yeah.
Kageki Shoujo was nearly my favorite of the series, of the season. I mean, it's a show pretty much about sisterhood.
Of the traveling pants?
Yes. No. It's about a theater troupe, an acting troupe, so to speak. With two lead characters, but honestly, this season had pretty much every episode would focus on at least one member of the troupe, be it one of the main two or any of the others. And every single time, it made me care about those characters, even if I didn't before. The two leads, though, are Sarasa and Ai. Ai is a former idol who got fired from her group because she thought one of her fans was ugly.
Oh.
It's more of that. I mean, she says something to him, and it gets spread all over social media, so she leaves because she just doesn't like being around men at all.
I see.
Sarasa, on the other hand, is a complete polar opposite, where she's extremely happy and positive all the time, whereas Ai's very reserved and doesn't even want to be roommates with her at the start. This series goes a lot of places I didn't expect it to. It talks about body issues. It talks about overeating.
Oh no.
Self-doubt. There's so much in this that I was just like, they're going there. I didn't expect them to go there, but they sure did.
There's a lot you can emotionally relate to there, especially if it's something that anyone might be.
Yeah, and they are in a top school for acting. Only so many people get into this school to even try to get into the school, and then even less of those people actually get in. So it's just... There's a lot of really heart-wrenching moments in it. For a 13-episode season, was just like, man, that was cool. But the thing with Sarasa, though, is that she starts as this very positive, cheerful person, but as time goes on and the teachers tell her flaws and all these things, she starts opening up, and you get more of that. She's not totally cheerful on the front. That's just a front. She has problems, and they will be addressed, especially if the series goes on. I ended up reading the manga of this because it took me that far. I was like, this is really, really good. This is my A tier. I had so much fun watching this. It was, aside from Dragon Maid, the only series I watched every single week it came out. It's the only one I could keep up with that much.
So what I'm hearing is an anime that knows when to be serious, good character growth, which I usually big on. If a character's unless it's a comedy, if a character's stagnant throughout.
There is good comedy in this as well too. Okay. I would say there's a few moments where it might slip a little too far into melodrama.
I see.
But
it's a theatrical
show.
That almost feeds into the themes. If you think about it.
Yeah.
And it knows when to focus on characters, because one thing that I'm big on, this goes with character growth, is that if you have a cast of characters, call me, expecting, high expectations, but if you have a cast of characters, I expect that cast of characters.
So, you know how in a lot of shonen anime, they will have tournaments, and every single time they do these tournaments, one of the main characters is going to come out on top. You'll see these background characters, and they're going to be knocked out in one of the first rounds. So it's not a super big spoiler to say that there's an audition thing where they're all auditioning for the role of Romeo and Juliet, as well as two other characters. And the outcome of this is that two of the people that you've met already throughout this series get parts. But one of them is a smaller part, one of them is actually one of the big ones. But the other two characters are people that you haven't even seen yet. They're background characters, and they won the big role. So you're just kind of seeing that, and you're like, wait, huh? You're telling me a character I haven't met yet got that?
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, that works way better because, like...
Well, it's kind of realistic.
It is realistic.
Like, a lot of the... I love shonen, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the time it's like a power fantasy. You're like...
Of course.
Oh, okay. Dude, main character bra is going to win the whole tournament, and then maybe, like, sidekick bra of the main character is going to get, like, 3rd or 4th place, and then evil bad antagonist is going to, you know, somehow get to the second, you know, semifinals, finals.
Yeah. This series is a series that just, it cares about its characters a lot, and it makes them very fleshed out. You care about each one of them as they're going through this, and I just loved every second of it.
Sounds Gucci. Maybe I'll check
I
it
am
out.
biased towards shoujo, but yeah.
How could you not be biased towards shoujo? I mean, I have fucking tropes and, like, genres that I'm like, oh, I know what this is doing, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Like, and I watch every shonen and fucking isekai under the sun.
Sure.
And, like, a lot of them are, like, so basic that I'm just like 6, 7, 6, 7. But, like, the ones that nail the formula, I'm like, that's why I'm a fan of this genre. That's the best thing I've ever seen. Yeah, that's why I'm a fan of the genre. That's what it's all about, baby. All right, anything else you want to say about?
I could gush for hours, but I'll stop there.
All right, so we'll cut you short there.
Yeah.
Well, time to talk about Sonny Boy.
Oh, no.
Alright, so there's no good way to talk about this, so let's address the elephant in the room, is that if you have seen, or even if you haven't seen Sonny Boy, this is one of those shows that has a lot to say, but it's not always going to say it in plain English or plain Japanese, since it is a Japanese anime.
I think a very important distinction to just say out of the gate is that while this series may not have worked for us as well, this is a series that I think is kind of riding on rewatches.
Yeah, this is a layered series. It's definitely saying a lot, and some of the vibes and themes I definitely picked up. But perhaps one of the worst mistakes I could have made was watching this, like I watched this not even a full 24 hours ago. Like, I watched the first 3 episodes for the first impressions, and then, in my defense, I rewatched from episode 2 onwards just to make sure I had as much information as possible for the final discussion video. But even though I enjoyed a lot of the really good, great parts,
there is a lot of good in this. Yeah. That is very important to state.
The, like, high notes are, like, high notes. If this entire series was its high notes, this would be just like, you know, like, this would probably be A tier type fucking series.
This is a series that's very reminiscent of stuff like Serial Experiments Lane, the original Ghost in the Shell movie, stuff like that, where it's like, I think those series reward rewatches in a way that no other do. The issue for me with this versus those is that when I watched Lane, there was stuff to grab on. There's a story there that I can latch on even without all of the other things going on. Sonny Boy lost that for me.
I could be wrong, because I could recontextualize it through a rewatch, but I did feel like every time you started to understood the show and, like, what it was doing, because it's sort of
left turn.
Yeah, left turn out of nowhere. And, like, one of the most important things, in my opinion, for a show like this is to let the audience have at least something to piece it together. And by memory, there are some examples of that, but then there's also examples that are just, no, this just comes out of nowhere. Fuck you, audience.
I felt the biggest shifting point for this series was when Miss Aki appears. When the teacher appears, that's when things just kind of went sideways. That was at least my takeaway.
Yeah. Isn't she, like...
Big Booba.
I know what character we're talking about, but like, well, this is the final take, so spoilers are on the table. But isn't she technically a student? Like, you don't find that out, but like,
I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know, and I don't remember.
So this is a good example.
Killed my brain.
This is a good example of how I could be completely wrong here, but by memory, I can't. This is gonna be one of those examples where, like, I'm thankful that I'm still a small YouTuber, because guaranteed there might be 1 or 2 comments.
Right.
But, like, I ever get some...
I will not be upset if somebody explains Sonny Boy to me.
I swear,
because I don't
by memory, she appears as a teacher. You think she's a teacher, but then they, like, zoom in on her skirt, and I'm like, I'll say 80% sure that basically tells the audience that she's masquerading as a teacher.
I do remember there being something about that, but like, it's just, that's the point, that's the thing with Sonny Boy, is that it's very, very vague about these things, and without a real plot thread to go off of, it's just conjecture. I just hear these things.
Almost
and then
every episode has a completely different feel to it. So every time you...
It felt like an anthology.
Yeah. Every time you put on a new episode, it's a continuation, but it almost forces you to really contextualize everything. Every episode.
Absolutely.
Like, most shows like this maybe make you do it once or twice.
God. I'm struggling to keep my thought process on it like linear, but that's just how this series made me feel.
Well, like, because
I feel individually a lot of those episodes, if they weren't part of a series, I would have loved them. But they're part of a series, and I don't know where it was going.
And it's funny too, because like I think by the end of the last episode, I enjoyed the last episode itself, but like it's roughly the halfway mark of the last episode. I was almost so pissed because I thought it was going to have one of the most dog shit endings known to man, and it fixes itself thankfully after that halfway mark. But I was so ready to be so.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't even remember the last episode.
So the last episode has a moment where like they finally get out of like the whatever purgatory world they were living for the first 11 episodes, and they go back to the real world, but like everyone's forgotten about each other, and so the main character goes to the main female, and the main female, being like kind of emotionally distant and rude, brushes him off. And the whole thing is that when they're finally done with, you know, the world, when they still remember each other before going back to the real world, you know, they tell each other.
By main female, do you mean Nozomi or do you mean Mizuho? Because one of them is the cat girl, and the other one is the one who like reaches towards the sky and has
so not the obviously she's not a cat girl, but
no, the girl with the cats.
The girl with the cats. So yeah, the girl with the cats is the one I'm talking about, because like, you know, like they have a lot of emotional growth with each other throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
And then they go back to the real world. They forget about each other. Or
now
he remembers her, but she doesn't remember him.
Right.
And thus it creates this thing where like you see him going through his daily life. He's, you know, he's suffering. He's, you know, he has like a job that he's getting like pushed around at, and like literally like most of this episode is just watching this guy like take L after L, and you're like, God damn, can this character just get a W already? And like I always hate kind of character regression, and like I was really worried that
it's the amnesia thing.
Well, I was worried that one of two things was going to happen. Either we were going to have a very somber ending where the girl's like, I don't know you, and like it was going to be a message about like sometimes things don't work out, or it was going to be season 2 bait, and you would have been like, tune in next time for the hopeful climax. But well, thankfully the girl does end up remembering him, and it kind of ends on a better note. But
hey, I mean, one thing I can say is anytime that the girl with the cats was on screen, I was transfixed because I really liked that character.
The character was really good, and they had a lot of growth.
I feel like of any character in that series, she got like the most growth, and like I actually enjoyed watching her. But comparatively,
there were some moments I didn't vibe with what she was doing, but I always was kind of invested in her character, and
I think that's kind of part of it, anyways.
Agree with her actions sometimes. They were relatable enough where even if I didn't agree with it, I could understand where she was.
She's kind of just a mess.
Yeah,
she's a hot mess of a character, and
and usually that's
relatable.
That's relatable. I'd much rather have a character that's extremely flawed than like a perfect character. Like, it's kind of just good character writing 101.
So a lot of complicated feelings on this show.
Ultimately, though, we discussed this for a while on where to rate it, but we ended up with D tier.
D tier.
And that wasn't an easy thing to put it as, because there's just so much going in. But like,
if I rewatched this like 20 times, maybe I'd think it's an S. Who knows?
I mean, I would never probably give it an S. Like an S. I mean,
it's a possibility. You never know. But I think visually, it's a really, really great show.
If visually it was really nice. I think even if I had a perfect understanding and grasp of the show, B tier is probably where it caps out for me, because the pinnacle moments, like the best moments for me were A tier, but they're juxtaposed against moments that were not so great. And even if you can recontextualize those moments for me, I can never...
It would have to be like you found out it was saying something that was extremely resonant to you.
And those
you
things
didn't
are
notice
hard.
it the first time.
Those things are hard for me anyway, because
like,
while I can come to appreciate them, unless you can show me irrefutable proof that that's what the show is saying and not your interpretation,
right?
I will respect your interpretation. I might even like cling on to it and take it as my own interpretation as well moving forward. But unless you can prove without a shadow of doubt that that was what the author was trying to say, I'm just going to take it as one.
And I feel like a lot of this, because I'd heard from someone else that like that teacher character, the gray-haired character with like the wheelchair, was actually a reference to the movie Doctor Strangelove from like the 60s. And I'm just like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? So I don't know, man. I feel like he just had a lot of things that is that director's vision. I don't know what his vision is. So
that was Sonny Boy.
Yeah.
Are you ready to talk about?
He's
Dragon Maid?
Dragon Maid?
Alright.
Oh man, look at us basic bitches.
This is my biggest fear for our first attempt at discourse for talking about seasonals is this is a second season of a show we both loved.
Yep.
And we absolutely fucking adored this anime.
It's better than the first season, and I believe that.
I would agree, because we talked about this in the first impressions, but my biggest concern was, oh no, new character, chaotic character, she could completely ruin everything that this show has set up.
And she walked in with all the swagger.
Yeah,
and then she just said, this is my home now.
Yeah. She completely accentuates everything that the show was already doing. She fits in perfectly. Every character introduced here works well.
Yep.
Every character has like their own sort of chemistry with each other character that usually works really well.
It wasn't even just that established chemistry was there. They took that established chemistry and they ran with it. Yeah. They gave you the backstory. They made you care about the characters even more than you already did.
Yeah, but by the end of it, other than maybe like a few characters, I felt like everyone had, like, almost every character has their own episode. You get a lot of backstory. My waifu in the show is the
Elma, isn't it?
It's
right?
Elma, yeah. My waifu is Elma. My brain kept feeding me Luna, and I'm like, that's not right.
That's not the name.
Right. That is not the name. I hate when my brain does that. But yeah, it gives you backstory of Elma and Toru, which, you know, you already have a decent amount, but you get to see, like, first season gives you this feeling that they were, like, enemies, and they hate each other, and they used to bicker and fight, which is true, but season 2 recontextualizes, and recontextualizing is a lot better than retconning, because it doesn't retcon.
Yeah. No, they did hate each other, but they hated each other because they loved each other, so it's a very...
They had a lot of history with each other, and while they did disagree, at the end of the day, they were both good people, just with different views, and that's what led to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything with Kana was always just as good as it always was.
Kana has one of my favorite episodes where she gets into an argument with Kobayashi, mostly off screen, and she just flies away and goes to, like, America.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, there's apparently, like Toru brings up later that she was watching over her the whole day, and, like...
Yeah.
I didn't rewatch it, but someone in the comments said this, and I'm willing to take them at their word.
Is she in the background?
She's just in the background.
Oh, that's cool.
You can go back and see it, so, like... You know, like, if you noticed it, you noticed it. If you didn't notice it, you can go back and see it. That's really
great.
Cool.
That's KyoAni at its best.
Yeah.
I also think something that might go underlooked from this season is that I feel like Lukawa and I don't remember the kid's name, but
Shota.
Of course.
What a name, right?
What's the little boy's name? Little boy. Oh!
Classic.
I feel like they made that a much more wholesome relationship than it had been in season 1.
It still has those moments
It does. It absolutely does.
But,
it's Tits Day.
Yeah.
But I feel like it felt more wholesome, and I feel like that's very
makes Lukawa come more across, like, what her character was trying to be, which she comes across like a overbearing aunt.
Yeah.
Like Shota very much doesn't really, like he cares for her, but at first impression he does not care for her, like, and he's very uncomfortable by her. But at the end of the day, like, you could tell that she cares for him and he cares for her, but it's not quite there yet. Season 3 could do a lot to fix it, but that relationship doesn't need to be fixed yet.
This season just took all the interpersonal relationships and really expanded upon how every single one of their lives intermingles with each other.
You get a lot both
with
in
Shota's
modern,
dad being Kobayashi's boss.
That was really funny.
Yeah.
Like it not only once again recontextualizes the world and universe and show as a whole. It
really just blew that whole lore open, which is awesome.
You get a lot of good backstory too. Like there's like, it's so funny to me. I didn't really bring this up yet, but like when you think about it, Dragon Maid is literally a reverse isekai, where like there's a alternate reality. There's an alternate reality where they could have made the office workers go to the dragon world and go have a field day with that, but instead they're like, no, bring the dragons to boring modern reality. Make the dragons blend in with humans. make fucking Elma do office work and Toru do maid work all day. All right, now make that a great show. And somehow it works so well. It's great seeing how the dragon characters will take their personalities and lifestyle from their previous world and bring it in here. You mostly see it in season 1, since that's where most of the characters are introduced, but you see it a lot more in season 2. So like Fafnir was he just hoarded gold. He was like a gold hoarding dragon. And so now he's just like an otaku. He hoards like otaku merch and he's like a pro god gamer.
So that last episode though.
Okay, so the last episode was really funny because the second to last episode had like really serious undertones that I was expecting to sort of make it so that the last episode was a really heavy episode, but really the last episode was just pure fun, and all it really did was make me really excited for a third season. It does
have one moment in it that makes you go, oh no, with Kana and Saikawa. But even that, in a sense, is just wholesome. So it's just...
Are we talking about the fact that we know that Kana, by virtue of being a dragon, will sort of, like, outlast her?
She will outlast her, yeah, because Saikawa's like, let's be old until we're grannies and be friends till then. Kana's just like, yeah, buddy, sure. Oh, God.
Well, even if the show does get to a point where it shows where that could go, like, there's a lot of potential for that to actually be done well, where Saikawa can kind of grow a mature understanding.
Also, to be fair, the dragons represent the age that they feel they are.
Yeah.
Because Toru and Ilulu are the same age, but Ilulu, feels she's a teenager, so she looks like a teenager. So, the longer Kana's with Kobayashi, maybe she ages in real time.
I brought this... We talked about this in our first impressions video about how much we liked... I've already forgot her name.
Elma?
No.
Oh, Lulu.
Chaos. Oh, yeah, Lulu. We already talked about how much we liked the Lulu, but something that hadn't come up at that point yet was, like, the episode where she, like, takes over for the candy shop.
Yep.
Like, oh my gosh, I already loved her character, but, like, the direction they took that with, like, I didn't see it coming, and I really liked how it already, not only do we have this character, not only was she well introduced, not only were there, like, past traumas and a lot like it
really makes you look back at like the worry we had.
Her introduction to her character growth. There's never a point in the season where I'm like, oh, my worst fears, they're coming true. No, every moment that this character had anything to give to the show, they gave, and then some. Anything else worth gushing over?
This is yet another series where I feel like we both could go on for hours, but yeah.
Like, let's go through each character real quick. I mean, Toru, you had both her moments with Kobayashi, and
Toru and Kobayashi just in general had such great chemistry this season to a point that was like peak.
Alma was Alma. You either had great moments of getting to know her better, which was something that I felt like
getting bite off with sweets at every turn.
Yeah, well, like season 1 like had her introduced, but like, this is one of the like tragic things of picking your favorite early, is that sometimes you don't get a lot of them, and you know, I think she has plenty of screen time in season 1, but by virtue of her being my favorite, you know, I want a little more because I'm a greedy fuck. Yeah. Well, season 2 delivers that. It gives an entire backstory for her that, and
they gave character development to literally every character.
Yeah. Although, like the episode that focused on Elma wasn't like a favorite by any means. I kind of like what she was going for, since she's basically trying to like restructure the.
I did like that. Yeah. I did like that, but definitely the one that's shared backstory with her and Thor is more. Peak.
Fafnir gets his own episode where he's like writing a book and it doesn't go so well, and he like conscripts Lukoa to like kind of be show-offy, and he tries to write sort of like a voluptuous character to like sell his books, and even that doesn't work out, so he's kind of still failing as like an upstart author, which is kind of cool because like he's so good at games that giving him something that he's not good at, it's kind of exciting because like I kind of want him to see him succeed at writing. But you have two aspects to the character. He's great when it comes to games, but he's awful when it comes to writing.
Right.
Which is interesting because, you know, he's trying to take what he's learned through playing those games and apply it to
I'd like to see more of his like actual backstory.
That is true, because we definitely
him
get
and Luke got the least for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We get like the
kind of was a baby.
You get as much as you need, but you could get more. But yeah, so that's all we have to say on Dragon Maid. So yeah, easy S tier.
Easy S tier.
And so
not even a question.
If there's one of these shows you should check out, if you haven't seen any of Dragon Maid, you should go back to season 1. Season 1's great. Season 1, would you give season 1 an S tier? I'd personally give it an A tier.
Season 1's definitely an A tier for me. Yeah.
So I recommend watching them both because season 2 just builds off it. Season 2 is exactly what you want a season 2 to be. And so I highly recommend going and watching this one over all of them. I've also made a drink video for Kobayashi just because I was that hyped for the second season. And so if you haven't checked out that video, I recommend that video on my channel. It was really cool making a drink for a seasonal anime. Something I want to hopefully continue doing, but by drinks I make are on whims.
I got a lot to go for next season, so I think maybe we'll have a lot.
So now we move on to awards. We have 5 awards to give. So for our seasonals, we have Hidden Gem, which is the show that sort of wowed us the most. You know, not necessarily the best show, but like, you know, Dragon Maid we expected to be great. So when it was great, wasn't that surprising. But the Hidden Gem is the show that you're like, wow, I was not expecting much from this, and it actually delivered. You have the best opening song, you have the best ending song, best boy character, and best girl character. So with that out of the way, do you want to go at the same time, or do you want to go 1 to 1?
I think it'll be easier if we do it 1 to 1.
Okay, so I'll go first unless you want to.
Go ahead.
Alright, so my hidden gem is the daily life of Uramichi. I almost completely skipped on the show as brought up earlier, but it ended up being like really decent comedy, even if it could have been better. My expectations for it were down here. It just didn't really appeal to me, like when I first heard about it. But actually giving it a chance, it was actually enjoyable and quite honestly, while watching it, an easy just. I didn't have to really think while watching it. I just left my brain at the door and let the show do the heavy lifting.
So my hidden gem was Star Wars Visions. I had no expectations for it because I'm kind of tired of Disney stuff. But it ended up being really solid and consistent throughout and was just fun to watch. It's not much more than what it is, but I had a lot more fun with it than I was expecting to going in.
Yeah, Disney stuff is pretty concerning. Definitely not a fan of the Disney overlords.
But hey, when they had the studios they had, and those worked for it, so.
Alright, moving on, we'll do best opening. Best opening, there was a few, there are actually some decent openings, but I just went with pure, simple, easy Dragon Maid.
Should I just hop in here?
Yeah, go hop in.
Best opening's Dragon Maid.
I know Supreme. Like, the opening was really good. The opening's really good animated. Like, Kyo Anime knocked it out of the park. The ending was good too, but
catchy as hell.
The opening really just got me into it. This is one of the openings that I would like go watch on my own time, just like once I had finished Dragon Maid, since I couldn't go watch more Dragon Maid, I just go.
It's everything you want out of an opening because it's catchy and the touch of having the characters sing along to the song with it. It's just perfect to watch.
It captures a lot of characters' personalities and even some of their character growths because like Lulu looks very there's like in the animation like it shows like her initial like chaos, fierce, anger, like fight mode, but then it shows like her little touches of tragic backstory undertones and then transitions to her mellowing out, which happens in the series. So it's exactly what you want in an opening. It needs to both be catchy, get you into wanting to watch it, while also encapsulating the feel of the show, and that's exactly what you get from the opening of Dragon Maid Season 2.
For sure.
For best ending was a lot harder because it was like a three-way tie. Endings are a lot harder for me usually because unless they like I think by virtue, openings are meant to like get you into the show, whereas endings.
Did you have more actual endings for your shows? Because I know Sonny Boy for both of us is kind of just like, well, it's just the song.
Yeah.
Did you have more though? Because for me, it was kind of down to just two.
My three that I was torn between were Dragon Maid, which was kind of a catchy, lighthearted ending. Uramichi, just because it stuck out of my mind, like it has like a very memorable like opening note, and then what I ended up going with, which was Vanitas no Cart Zero, because I guess what I ended up doing to decide, even though I don't remember what the lyrics were, is I went the lyrics route and went which really speak to me most, and Vanitas kind of had the most, I guess, somber ending, which I was able to resonate with, and so that was the ending that I ended up being like, yeah, that's the one I like.
Right. Because for mine, the issue was that I had... Star Wars doesn't have an ending. Right. It's just fucking Star Wars. Sonny Boy was just a song, so I felt kind of weird saying that. Kageki Shoujo was good, but the best ending was Dragon Maid.
That's fair.
It's the same thing as the opening. It's just catchy. The animation's very fun. It was very fun.
All right. On to Best Boy. I had some options here. I almost went with Uramichi, and then I also...
You had a lot more to choose from.
Briefly thought about Fafnir. I really like Fafnir. I think he's a great character. I ended up deciding that Fafnir could have had a little more screen time, though, and I also kind of wanted to branch out, and so after much reflection, I went, all right, you know what? I picked neither character from Dragon Maid, and I was really close to picking Ilulu for the female, but we'll get there. But for Best Boy, I went for Vanitas. What I think, well, the show could have been a little better. It was still a great show, and I think Vanitas as a character really carries it. He has a lot of charisma, and he's one of those characters that right when you think you figured him out, he does something just a little outside what you were expecting, which is good because if a character goes too far out of what you've come to expect, you just get mad. You go, that's not within the realm of what they do. But Vanitas kind of has that sort of, keeps you on your toes, kind of trickster kind of personality where, like, when he does something out of character, you're like, wow, that is just like Vanitas. What? Wow.
So, there's a reason I was chuckling throughout that, because you have this great character, tons of development, right? Main character, he's got a lot going on. My best boy is an ant.
Trade-off.
A living ant.
You get... I get Vanitas. You get ant?
Yes, so my best boy was General Ant, or Ant A, from Black Company. He is essentially a side character because there's an episode where the main character becomes an ant and leads a revolution of ants. And this was just the main ant of the series. You see him later on where he turns into a general of a demon army. He's just great.
Definitely a character that would make me antsy to watch the next episode.
Yeah. I just love the dichotomy there because this is a massive joke character.
For best girl, all right, let's flash it at the camera first before we reveal it, and then I know we won't share it. I was very close to giving it to Ilulu just because I could have given it to any of the Dragon Maid girls. I could have went the easy way and given it to Elma, who was my favorite female of the show, Taru for being best girl almost just by existing. Kobayashi for being best girl almost by existing.
I did come very close to picking Ilulu.
Eventually I'm like, alright, Dragon Maid almost had the issue with, since both the females work so well, there was no clear defined winner. So what I ended up going with was actually Cuff from Kuro Maid, because has a really cute design, she has great personal growth, I like her character, and she literally was the character that made the show go from check minus to check plus, because I watched episode 4 on a whim, and if episode 4 was just like episodes 1, 2, and 3, I would not have finished it. I would have dropped it and went with something else for another anime to rate. But yeah, when Cuff appeared, kind of helped carry the rest of the season. And like, it wasn't that her character alone saved the series. Like, a lot of the characters were still great characters, but she allowed the show to open up and breathe more, because the characters had more characters to bounce off of. You didn't have the same running gags. Like, you did, but you got more variety, so you didn't see the same things in shorter spans of time. They got branched out more, so you're only seeing them at the beginning or the end of each episode rather than throughout the whole thing.
So I was very close to picking Ilulu, but I didn't. I ended up going with Sarasa from Kageki Shoujo. I feel like I already gushed about her enough in just talking about it, but she really is just a character I absolutely adore. There was a lot of characters, because I had a lot of female-focused shows that I watched. There's a lot of characters that could have taken it, but just the way Sarasa felt way more multifaceted and grew throughout the series just made me adore her in such a way. So, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Alright. Anything else to say in regards to seasonals or awards?
This was a solid season, all told. I think Dragon Maid definitely carried this season a lot.
Dragon Maid carried this season. I had a hard time deciding what to watch at the start of it. I think Fall, to me, feels like a stacked season. But I kind of always feel that way at the start of the season.
I do too, but there's a lot I'm looking forward to this season. And even like I told you when I was watching Black Company, there was a lot of shows. I even started some of them while I was still trying to finish these, because I'm just so hyped for it.
So I think summer was a good season, though, because by virtue... Since this is our first time doing this, we wanted a good middle ground. We didn't want a boring flop of a season. But we also
wouldn't want a banger either, because then we would have been like, oh god, what are we doing?
Yeah, so it was a good first experience before we get into fall, and I think fall has a lot more to offer. So I'm excited to make the first impressions.
Spooky animes.
Spook time, which by the time we talk about... Well, the first impressions will still be real spook hours, but by the time we do the finale, we'll be doing...
Probably right around Halloween.
I know, like, the first impressions will be Halloween. The finale will be like, oh, it's almost Christmas time. Or maybe it'll be past Christmas. It's 13.
It might be leaking
eps.
into January, but who knows?
Yeah, probably. And then we have the end of the year wrap up.
Time's weird.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out Anime Bar Fight. I hope your favorite anime came out on top. Dragon Maid was absolutely throwing fisticuffs. It completely dominated the competition. Sonny Boy was the smash sap. Completely, it got fucking beat, but it stayed in the fight. It did not drop out like all the other animes from our first impression. So, Sonny Boy took a beating.
And it was going to be hard for anything to match up to Dragon Maid, no matter what it was, but some stuff put in a fight.
So, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that cool YouTube shit. We've just recently hit 200 subscribers. It's been pretty awesome watching the channel growth. But other than that, thanks for checking us out. Take it easy.